Hi everyone and welcome back to Chess for Charity. In this video, I'm going to show you a cool checkmate in 3 problem that is quite hard to find. So if you'd like to, try to pause the video and see if you can find the only sequence that is checkmate in 3 for white. While you're doing that, let me quickly encourage you to subscribe if you have not yet already. Half of the income that I earn in this channel goes directly to charity, so every like, every subscriber helps me out so much. Okay. Let's get started here. So it's white to move, and you might have a couple of just initial thoughts. So one thought I had was maybe move the king here, bring the rook here kind of thing. Or put the rook on h7, bring the knight in. So something like this, if they play a passing move just to show the point, I can play check, and then this will be mate, right? Because the knight holds these two, and of course, the rest are held by the rook. Now, that's of course if they make a passing move, they're not going to make a passing move. And then similarly, I had an idea of moving the king, but if they move the king, it's not going to work. So really this only works if they block themselves in somehow, but they're not going to do that. So you have to start thinking realistically about what they would do. So a good first move to consider is knight b6. Sure, okay. King b8. Now, you might think this works. Rook h8. But they just take this, and this is not mate. They have one square to go to. Good idea, but it doesn't quite work. So after this, maybe you think a move like this. A move like this would work. But unfortunately, it's not going to be mate in 1 after this move because they can block with rook c8. This will still be mate, but it's not going to be checkmate in 3. That would be checkmate in 4. So what is the move here? How do you start to find the key idea? And maybe you can try to deflect, right? Something like this, like a check, and if they take, maybe this is an idea, right? That's mate in 3. But, as I mentioned, they don't have to. They can just do this. And if you check them again, they just take you. And now this is a draw, because the king is out. And it's a rook and a minor piece against a rook. So there are a lot of ideas here. I'm going to share the winning move now, the checkmate in 3. So last chance to pause it. So the first move is a rook move. It is rook to h8. Now look at this. There clearly is some tension between the rooks here. Let's just look at the obvious move if they take. We'll talk about some variations as well. If they take, what do? You might think knight check, knight check. No, that's not it. Do you see the mate in 2 from this position? It does not involve a knight check on this move. The move here is knight to c6. Now what is this move doing? Well, it's cutting off these key squares, and this square is already cut off from the king, and so is this one. So really this knight jump is really cutting off b8. So it's white's next move. It's their job to checkmate black, depending on what they do. So the black rook cannot cover both b6 and c7 from one square because it can't teleport itself to b7. So b6 and c7, no matter what happens next, there's going to be mate. You go here to prevent the knight check, you get mated this way, which I think is kind of pretty. If you go here to prevent the mate on this square, you get mated on b6, which is also kind of pretty. But that's not really, there's nothing you can do as black. There's not really a choice there. So, like I mentioned, after knight c6, that's going to be mate. Let's look at some variations though. So after rook h8, what is the best thing that you can do? Let's say you just move your king and say, hey, if you take me, this is going to be a draw. And that would be correct. You can't force checkmate with 2 knights. Okay, but what if instead of you capturing, because you wouldn't want to do that, instead, what do? Well, you could play knight c6, because this is pinned, right? Kind of a fancy move. And now, checkmate with the rook. So that's mate in 3. So there's not really a good refutation. Okay, what if instead of a king move, after rook h8, instead of a king move, what if they move the rook somewhere else? Is that going to change anything? No, that'll just make it easier for me. They move the rook somewhere, I just take the rook because the king is already trapped. So in this starting position, checkmate in 3 is the best you can do with best play, starting with rook h8. And I just love the variation that if they take, you have this really clever, quiet move, knight c6, and one of these two squares will be checkmate next. And there's no other thing you can do. You play this move, there's no pin, right? There's nothing that you need to worry about. You can pick your favorite way to do it. I'd go here because I like this little box that I have here. But yeah, that is pretty much it. If you enjoy the content, be sure to like and subscribe. But that's it for now. Thank you so much. Bye.